everybody, welcome to Lifehacker for March 19th. The big news last week, of course, or the thing everyone's talking about, Friday the iPad.
Still the iPad.
The new iPad came out.
You sound so sad.
There's nothing really...
It's been 2 weeks. We're still talking about it.
There's nothing really new to talk about it. You already know everything there is to know about it. We did briefly, though, talk about what you might want to get instead of spending $500 on a new iPad. We talked about that on Friday. Mostly because a lot of us at Lifehacker have iPads already and aren't compelled by the new iPad to run out and buy a new one. You haven't. What was your thing? What would you get?
I would get an e-reader, something probably like the Nook Simple Touch, which I can hack and run Android on and get Instapaper.
And that'll cost you
$99, unless I buy it on Craigslist. So we'll see. But it's just something that doesn't have the backlit screen.
I'm getting an Apple TV, a new Apple TV that has 1080p. I like it. I can put XBMC on it. Adam, you suggested.
I suggested a couple. Well, I initially traded in my iPad 1 for an Android tablet so I could do video game emulation with a PlayStation
Rookie
controller.
mistake.
Yeah, so I missed the iPad, and I actually am going to upgrade, or did. But I also thought if I had $500 lying around to spend on something, I thought it would be a good time to decorate my apartment a little bit more, put some stuff on the wall. Per the suggestions that I got in an Ask Lifehacker recently.
And Mel was thinking a bike. Mel would get a bike, or maybe she is. I'm not sure.
I have no idea.
Alan built a big old HTPC, and Thorin.
That's a good one.
Thorin got an SSD, which I thought was a great idea. I'm so glad
that's the winner.
I do like that two of us are going the home theater PC route, though, kind of.
Yeah. Okay, so moving along, though, more interestingly, Firefox finally released Firefox 11. Not finally
released Firefox.
They're releasing new Firefoxes all the time. However, in Firefox 11, they finally added add-on sync, which is awesome. Add-on sync is near the top of the list of things that made me want to use Chrome rather than Firefox, even though at this point I'm firmly in the Chrome camp. Mm-hmm. It took Firefox way too long from a consumer perspective to add in add-on sync.
It took them absurdly long. It's one thing that they have had add-ons for so long and had synced other stuff and not add-ons. Mm-hmm. But it's absurd that after Chrome brought out extension syncing, Firefox didn't jump on that immediately. Yeah, they should have jumped on that immediately, and it's taken them a year, 2 years, something
more than
absurd.
A year. But I think that I'm pretty sure more than a year. But I think there were probably technical issues in terms of the infrastructure of how extensions work that made it more difficult. But it doesn't matter. It was for a user, it was problematic because Firefox had it and it was awesome.
Chrome had it.
Chrome had it. Excuse me. So anyway, that is awesome. And if you're a Firefox user, super exciting. Whitson's almost the only one left at Lifehacker. At Lifehacker
I'm the only one left at Lifehacker.
Though he's not.
You have the
stay strong, guys.
Yeah. Now you have less of a reason to switch, though.
So he'll be very happy next time he has to install Firefox.
Install Windows or whatever.
Okay, so another thing happened this week. Dropbox had another big space giveaway, 3 gigabytes for using their image uploader, which actually is sort of the same thing that they did recently.
If you use the beta before, but you don't get more. It doesn't stack. If you used the beta 3 weeks ago, you won't get more space now. But if you didn't, free space, go get it.
But Dropbox, we love Dropbox. Whitson has he's the resident cheapskate at this point at Lifehacker. And
are you not paying still?
I'm not paying for Dropbox. I don't need to. I got 20 gigs now.
So Whitson's got
I'm paying for so much software this weekend, though. But I did do a good roundup of all the ways that you can get free Dropbox space. There are events like this that will get you more periodically, like the Drop Quest. There's an online scavenger hunt they have. But there are a lot of good ways to get free space if you don't want to pay. I'm up to 20 gigs now. You can get probably even more than that. So you can go check that out. I'll have a link to that in the show notes.
But for what it's worth, I happily pay for Dropbox. I generally don't even do these things because at this point what I pay for it is I don't bump into space limitations that often.
Yeah.
Dropbox is a great service. We use it nonstop at Lifehacker. We have a Lifehacker shared folder that has everything that we use and collaborate on.
Super
You
dependent
pay
on
for it too.
Yeah, I mean, I use the sync iTunes and pretty much everything, and I think it's so great to be able to do that because then it's not only like it's on all my computers, but if a hard drive dies and I need a backup of my important stuff, I just have a backup. I have a backup online and I have a backup in another local location. So it prevents me from needing to do that separately.
If you're syncing something huge like that, there's really no way around paying for it, and it's totally worth the money.
Well,
so I'm not saying Dropbox doesn't worth the money. I just don't use it to sync music and stuff. So it's like, I only need a few extra gigs.
The way that I'm kind of rolling now with sort of the way that so much is syncable is basically I'm putting everything that's like sort of matters day to day, syncing via Dropbox. Everything really big is on like a second storage drive. The storage drive gets backed up to CrashPlan. Basically, if the storage drive went down, I could get it back, but it's not urgent. And if I got a new computer tomorrow, I could install Dropbox on it and just like have everything I need.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
That's I mean that's like the main selling point for me in terms of paying for it.
Yeah, and it's totally worth. It's $50 a year. Is that right?
Yeah, it's 50 or 100, and that's like for 150 or 100 gigs.
Yeah.
Which for an entire year is a great price.
Yeah, and it's also like, and they double your free space as well. So I initially didn't pay for it for so long, and I had like 10 gigabytes free, so now I have 120 gigabytes or something.
All right, so while we're on the topic of paying for things, March Madness started on Thursday last
Officially,
week.
the first round started.
And I sent Whitson digging for the best places to watch it online. And as it turns out, it's not terribly difficult this year.
Yeah, and it wasn't last year. So for the record, last year you could just go to ncaa.com and watch everything for free. But in years past, we've done this thing where here's where you can watch it online. Some of them were less legit than others. But what I love about this year is while there is some people might have to pay a few bucks, but it's done so well.
Tell me, give us the overview. What's the
Here's
situation?
the overview. The games are airing on 4 different channels, one of which is CBS. You can watch all the CBS games on cbssports.com for free, no matter who you are. So that's awesome. The other games are airing on Turner channels, TBS, TNT, and True TV. And if you subscribe to cable already, you can watch those games for free on their respective websites, like TNT.TV or whatever. You just need to probably enter your account number for your cable subscription or whatever.
Which is a little tedious. But
Which and it's not perfectly seamless and easy, but that's pretty solid to be able to get it for free if you already subscribe to cable. For the few of us that don't subscribe to cable,
for the many of us who don't,
many
of us.
Do any of us subscribe to cable?
None of us do. But so for those of us that don't subscribe to cable, you can go to ncaa.com and get the entire month's worth of games for $4. Which is an incredible price.
And actually...
And that $4 also gets you streaming to any iOS or Android device, which is also
nice.
So even if you subscribe to cable and you want to watch it on your mobile device, $4. I can find that much on my couch.
Yeah.
Totally worth it.
Honestly, even if you subscribe to cable and you don't want to jump around between CBS.com, TNT, TBS, and so on...
It's easier to pay the money.
Pay $4.
Yeah, and so...
And it's much easier than trying to find an illegal stream.
Yeah, and that's what I wish more places would do something like that. I mean, even like $4 is a ridiculously cheap.
It's great.
I mean, you could do $20 and it would still probably be worth it if you're watching all these games
for the entire month. Yeah. Don't tell us.
No, but I mean,
popularize that idea.
But I wish more companies would do this sort of thing.
So this is the situation. Like, you know, We've talked occasionally about different ways to find entertainment and streamline the way the process works. Unfortunately, a lot of times that involves things like Usenet. Unfortunately,
or
for
BitTorrent.
content distributors, because it's we hate paying for things, but we hate pains in the ass.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they make it a pain in the ass. If you have Sickbeard set up.
You don't do anything. It just shows up.
TV is magical. It works better than any season pass. It'll play anywhere, and you get it. It's basically the same. It's like the TV version, the TV show version of this NCAA thing. And if I could get the same things that I can get from Sickbeard by paying someone for it,
I would pay so much money for that.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Anyway, but this is the perennial pirate problem. There was a really good Oatmeal comic
About the
that
Game of
addressed the
Thrones,
issue.
yeah.
HBO is a particularly bad culprit
Which
of
is
this.
so
where
frustrating.
You literally
Yeah.
can't watch it anywhere unless you subscribe to HBO or unless you pirate. And
Yeah.
unfortunately,
As HBO, they could make an app that you could buy and just watch their stuff through the app, and you subscribe to the app, and then you wouldn't have to get cable. But it's like, it's not just, I mean, the problem with those premium channels or any premium packages is that you have to pay a monthly fee for all this other cable. So it's not just $12 a month, it's like $80 plus $12
And say I want Game of Thrones, but I care about nothing else on HBO. I have to pay for everything. I can't just
Every
a la
month.
carte be like, yeah, I'll pay for my Game of Thrones.
it's insane that we haven't even gotten to a la carte cable yet.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
still isn't as good as Sickbeard. But
Well, like the satellite providers sort of do that. No one really knows about that because no one uses
no one ever
them.
uses satellite.
Yeah, but they have, like, if you have a basic cable, like, you can get really basic cable packages with them or pay a fee, and usually it's still too expensive, but they do have some a la carte options. It's unfortunate that the regular cable companies aren't.
The whole thing is that they love to complain about SOPA and PIPA and stuff, but if they just made their stuff easier to get, people would pay
Yeah, I mean
up
that's
the you-know-what for it.
yeah.
All right, and with that, I think we're ready to move on to some questions.
All right.
Okay, our first question comes from a caller in New York.
Hi, Lifehackers. I'm trying to extend the range of a router. It's a Belkin N300 or N600 router, and I need to extend the range outside and down to a barn that's over a hill from the house. I saw the sales that this router has internal antenna instead of external antenna. So I love making those sales. They look really cool. But is there any dish or something I can just place my router in that might extend the life of it without having to go through the expense of getting some sort of a repeater or an external, more external hardware? Okay, thanks.
Okay, so interesting question. Off the bat, I don't think that's going to be possible.
Nope.
Yeah.
You've got basically a hill. Here's your house. Here's a barn. Here's a hill. And those, it's just not.
It's just not happening.
You can do things to extend the range, of course. And just for anyone who doesn't know, the sails she's talking about are those
Windsurfer.
windsurfer.
Oh, I did not
that
understand. I was
we
like,
made
does she
on
sail to the barn on a boat? Does she? I couldn't understand.
We made them on a previous episode of the show, and basically they're just little things that point the antennas in the direction you want to boost your signal. Anyway, not going to happen, unfortunately.
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, it's just too far.
But you do have options of sort of making it work better.
Yes. I know one of the first things that comes to mind is you can install a custom firmware with like DDWRT on your router, and that you can boost the range a little bit that way, but
You can increase
that's
the
mostly just
transmission.
that's just mostly going to cover a little bit more of your house. That's certainly not going to get you to a barn.
Yeah.
The only way, and I don't know how far away this barn is, but the only
Hundreds of feet, I believe.
Yeah, you will need extra hardware. I don't even know if one normal repeater will make it to the barn. You may need a number of repeaters.
Sort of depends on what the geometry of the situation is.
If you're looking to save money, though, you could turn an old router into a Wi-Fi repeater.
You can get it really cheap, Go
Just get a really cheap router and install this custom firmware, and it's turned into a Wi-Fi repeater.
If she does that, she could take the current router she has, the Belkin N600. I don't know if that can do DD word or not, but
I think Belkin.
But I
does
think
in
they can.
general.
I think they can become repeaters. I remember that. That's one thing that the Belkin firmware actually does well.
Some Belkins
okay.
even ship with DD word, a custom.
Oh, really?
I believe so.
Oh, that's nice.
So you may or may not have your work cut out for you.
Yeah, but I feel like this is kind of a situation for a high-powered industrial router. It has a long way to go, and then that other router can be the current router could be repurposed as a repeater, and that might make it all the way to the barn. It's hard to say because we don't know how far the barn is.
So
But
in
bottom
Firefox,
line, you're
if
not
that
going to be
hill
able to
is.
do it without extra hardware. You probably will have to spend some
You
extra.
could also
Yeah.
potentially run a cable underground if you're really feeling like going nuts, which actually could be the cheapest option, honestly. It's
Or
not
get
that
cable installed in your barn and put another modem.
it doesn't
in there.
cost that much to like buy the cable, but it's going to take some time and some work to actually bury it. But it depends on whether this is a long time need or a short term. Anyway.
Plus, you
So
probably
there
have a
you
lot of
go.
tools in that barn.
Not a great answer for you, but that's what it is.
Sorry.
So, second question. Reader Grant writes, how can someone with a great idea for an app but no code skills get an app made?
Okay.
Common
A common
question?
question.
Yeah, we get this a lot, and I think it's kind of a bad idea to make an app without any coding skills. Even if you have somebody to help you out who is the coding person, because if you don't understand, I think like you don't have to be a professional coder and you don't have to be the person necessarily doing the coding if you're in a project. But I've worked with clients in the past where they don't know anything about programming at all whatsoever, and there's always this disconnect between the developer and the non-developer about how does this work, what's possible, what's not possible, and it becomes really problematic. So I feel like you probably want to at least know the basics of code. And we have some night school lessons that go over a few things that would at least get you an idea of this is how it works. And then before you jump into making an app with with someone who's not someone who is a developer and can do it, then it at least you'll have that background helping you out.
So it sounds like really you'd want to look for a co-founder who maybe you guys could get on the same page with and get to know each other really well. Like if this is, because the other thing is, one approach is that where you're sort of like, I've got this idea, I'm the idea man, I'm going to hire someone who doesn't really care that much about the idea to execute my idea, and then they're just going to do, the best thing that they can do to realize it, but they're not invested because it's just a short-term job. So I would say maybe like if you're in a startup area, you go looking, go meet people, learn things, learn what you can, and then also look for someone who like shares the vision, and then together you would presumably, aside from the idea, be bringing something else to the table because ideas are relatively cheap. Honestly,
and go find someone in a code forum. I mean, like go where the developers are and are talking, and just and people who are making stuff, people who are doing maybe some open source things even. You get a lot of, I mean, they have to eat. So find them, talk to them, see if there's someone who's interested in doing something similar to what you want to do. And you might be able to put together the project that way. But there are also options like, I mean, you can go to Kickstarter if you really want to hire somebody and do a Kickstarter campaign with your idea. There's App Maker with out the E in Maker.
There's also Illumination Software Creator, which does the iOS, Android, all sorts of different platforms where you can kind of make it without coding experience. I don't know how good apps like this always are.
But basically,
I mean,
it's
it's
just,
limited.
You are better off learning some code to start with.
Yeah,
for sure.
But there are things out there to avoid the coding altogether, but with lots of limitations.
Okay, so moving along. Chris from Tennessee calls in.
Hey, this is Chris from Tennessee. I was
That's what I
just
said.
calling to ask you, how can I put Lion on a Core 2, or a Core Duo processor? The MacBook 1, and I would love to have Lion on it so that I could use iCloud. Thanks.
First of all, briefly, let's talk about this. What's with the comma naming that Apple does? I've never understood it. It's
One
always-
is first generation. One is the generation, and then the second number is which.
But why is it a comma? Why don't they just do sort of like a 1 point?
Why? I
period?
don't know.
I don't know. Well,
Anyway, props for still having a absolute first gen MacBook still running. That is first of all. Next,
Okay, so it is difficult to do. But
it's
it is possible, correct?
Yeah, I mean, as I understand it, you basically have to trick the Lion installer to thinking your computer is not an old MacBook. And from what it looks like people have done online, it seems to actually run quite well. It run better than Snow Leopard anyway. And that's what I've read in the comments of a few posts I found. But it looks like basically sometimes you have to remove the hard drive, which on a MacBook is not too difficult. and either swap it in with another one or have it be an external drive, and then run the installer from a Lion-friendly machine and then put it back in. Or I also found some other method, and I don't really know the details, but we'll put the post in the show notes where you can kind of give it you can change its identifier. And then it will just install because it thinks it's a newer machine.
So this is possible. And there's a great post on OS 10 Daily that sort of walks through it. And so not something that most people would run into.
Yeah.
That's insane that you have that computer.
Yeah, everyone I know with that computer is literally hanging by a thread.
Yeah,
also,
because they do, like, the hardware just breaks.
But that's also really cool that it apparently works pretty well.
Yeah.
That is one thing
I would have thought there was a good reason why they didn't put it support it, but
Apple's always, they're all about planned obsolescence. But like Apple has done a good job lately of like making new releases not make hardware irrelevant.
Well, they kind of have to.
They are, but like
they kind of had to with the MacBooks because
They
Core
went
2
for
Duo was there for so long.
Yeah.
But Core Duo was passed up so quickly.
All right. So, moving on, Alex writes in, I just got a MacBook Air, first Mac ever, and I feel like my widget screen has no love at all. The widget page on Apple's website feels outdated. Do you have any good recommendations? Any widget that syncs with iOS apps, such as reminders, notes, etc.?
Well, there's a simple note. Syncing.
Simple Note is a
widget,
note-taking app. Honestly, I'll start it off. I never use Dashboard. I just have never. I hate it.
It completely defeats the purpose of widgets in my mind, which is to have them always there and always visible.
I guess I don't
want to have to hit a button to go to them.
Yeah,
if I wanted to do that, I would just launch an app.
I wouldn't want to use it for notes, but what I do like to use it for is package deliveries and weather. And the weather one is great. That's already there. You can add in as many as you want. But for package deliveries, like you use Slice, and I use Slice on my phone because that's really convenient. But for the computer, because because I'd have to log into the website, I use a widget called Deliveries, which lets me put it in, and it gives Growl notifications. Growl is the notification king of the OS 10 desktop, and so that way I can just I can go in and check when my packages are coming, and it's really great because you put in the tracking number and it detects it immediately.
Yeah.
And there is an iOS app for it too, but Slice kind of defeats that purpose.
It's interesting. I think it kind of brings up, for me, my phone has sort of taken the place of widgets. I just use my phone for that sort of stuff.
No, I never touch my phone unless I'm out of the house.
Oh, I like offloading that sort of stuff because then it like focuses my computer work more, like less distracting things going on. Like I don't want Growl notifications coming up on something necessarily, but my phone can like tell me something got delivered or whatever. I did once upon a time make a Lifehacker RSS widget for Dashboard in 2005 or 2006.
Whether that still works.
I don't know if that's still working. But install that. See if you can find it. Yeah. I don't know where it is.
But for note syncing, did we write down what the
Simple Notes dashboard widget
is called?
That exists, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll put
and
that.
And so that's something that could do basically the note thing you're asking for.
Yeah, I mean, rather than using the notes on the iPhone, it's kind of Simple Notes. It's a much better application. You can access it from any device. You can access it on your computer with notational velocity, or what is it? Is it
Resolve notes?
Yeah,
on
Windows, and then on the web or whatever. There are apps for everything.
iStat is also a good dashboard widget.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's
that's information you don't always need visible, but if you want to see how much RAM is being taken up, or see if you have any runaway processes, hit the dashboard, iStat Pro or whatever it is.
That's a great one.
Widget. Fantastic.
Cool. All right, so
it's just a few.
Last question of the day comes from another call-in.
Dear Lifehacker, I've seen that it is possible to host a website from your Dropbox folder, but how do I make to choose the Dropbox folder to be used for the domain audio? It would seem to be a perfect solution for a small website, and instead of getting a web hosting service for $60 or more.
Okay, so basically he's just asking, he wants to host a very simple, I'm assuming static website on Dropbox. How do you do it? The answer, very simply. You put your index.html and all the other files that are a part of your website into the public Dropbox folder. Copy that public link specifically to the index.html file and just pass it around. That will work like a charm. However, you do have other options. For example, there is a website called Adam, what is it? Scriptogram.
Scriptogram. And that's for blogging.
Which turns your Dropbox into a blog. And does that all happen in your public folder, or is it more of it's a service that connects to your?
I think it connects and syncs the files.
Okay. And you can write your blog post in Markdown, which is a very simple, like non-HTML writing. What would that be called? Scripting language? Not really.
Yeah, well, yeah,
markup. It's a markup language that basically lets you bold things, whatever. It's nice. It's plain text, and that will work. There are also tools called Drop Pages, Pancake.io. And both of those are also services that do similar things where you can...
Yeah, well, that's for more, like, for regular web pages and not
more
necessarily
robust as opposed to a blog.
Yeah. And I think all of those things have some sort of theming option a little bit. I mean, Scriptogram, I think, does have some very basic ones.
Yeah.
But it gives you a little bit less work to do, and maybe some more, not necessarily total control. But if you don't want to write the HTML, then that's the way to go.
So basically, if you're looking to do it on the cheap, you can definitely host a website on Dropbox. Just keep in mind that it will be just basically static stuff, or anything it can only use like static HTML, JavaScript, CSS. You do all that, you should be aces, and you won't have to pay for any hosting.
One thing to mention, though, is that if you're planning on serving this website up to lots of different people, Dropbox is not designed for that, and it will be slow if you have a bunch of people accessing it. And I think I've heard about sometimes it getting cut off if there are too many people accessing the file.
They have limits on bandwidth for stuff like that.
So you do have to be aware of that.
So unless you're gonna, so if you're planning on being a superstar internet blogger, Dropbox is not the place to do it. But otherwise, it should work for you.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we're ready for some downloads. Okay, so downloads for this week. Let's kick it off with Social Fixer. An extension that Whitson wrote all about earlier this week.
Social Fixer.
Last week. A week ago.
Social Fixer, formerly known as Better Facebook, is an incredible extension for Chrome, Firefox, Opera, everything except Internet Explorer, that can basically overhaul Facebook's interface and behavior in a multitude of ways. Yeah. Facebook, I'll admit I spend way too much time on Facebook. A lot of you are probably like me. And Facebook's great, but like there are a lot of just really annoying little things about the interface that I wish I could change, like the font size, or I want to get rid of certain sections, or want to automatically expand certain sections and whatnot. And pretty much every time Facebook changes something, everyone gets all angry, and Social Fixer pretty much always has a fix for it. So check out our feature on all of Social Fix's features and all the things you can do with it.
What's your favorite?
My favorite, one of my favorites is a very little one. We talked about this before. There's a second inbox on your Facebook that you never really see.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, if you have someone that messages you that isn't already your friend, you won't get a notification for it, which is really annoying.
I always need to remind myself to check that.
And the only way to get to that is if you click the messages and go to your inbox and then click on the little other link that pops up. Social Fixer essentially extends that little portion of your sidebar to include the other link, which always shows you how many other messages you have in that little second inbox. So it's just a really great simple fix for a huge annoyance if you get a lot. If you're like a freelancer, a lot of times that's how people might contact you. Yeah. And stuff like that. So that's one of my favorites.
But it allows you to see that, someone who I don't know has sent me a message.
Right.
If you get a ton of messages there that you don't care about, then you probably don't care.
But you can take those little fixes, multiply that by like 100. Yeah. There are like 100 of those in Social Fixer.
Basically, if you've got any Facebook annoyance, it's probably addressed by Social Fixer.
So it can also change up the timeline a little bit and kind of get rid of some of timeline's annoying parts. But if you really want the old pre-timeline interface back, we recently featured an extension for Chrome called Timeline Remove, which I'm not sure how, probably wizardry, actually brings you back to the old pre-timeline view.
Like
for,
pixel for pixel, right? It
like
looks
pixel
really
for
good.
pixel
Wow.
for all Facebook pages. It won't get rid of your timeline, so your friends will still see your timeline. There's no way to fix that.
Right.
But as you're browsing Facebook, you will never have to see the timeline again. It's literally magical. I'm fairly certain.
Literally.
Literally. That is all.
Okay, up next, run, zombies.
Oh yeah.
I think it's more like run zombies.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah,
You're not telling the
run,
zombies to run.
zombies, run! The hatchet's coming.
Which is I when I was running from the zombies, I actually got a hatchet on the way.
Sorry, Pat's having trouble.
It's an iPhone.
Run, zombies! Sorry. Okay.
What
an
is Run
iPhone
Zombies?
It's an iPhone app. It uses your GPS to kind of know where you are, and it's a game that actually you literally run outside around your area, and it has kind of a fake map. You end up in a place. You pretend, and you have your headphones in, and it's telling you stuff, and you're in a helicopter, and that helicopter crashes in Able Township. And Able Township has a population of 60, which I believe is mostly zombies at this point. Or there are lots of zombies plus 60 people. I haven't gotten far enough along yet. But they're like, oh my god, they're going to eat you. And then you have to run. And as you run, literally running and exercising, then the game notices that you picked up a shirt and some underwear and some trousers. I didn't realize I was running naked, but apparently this will be useful down the line. And you're supposed to get to a tower off somewhere. There's a map, I believe. I had never got to the map, a chance to glance at the map, but you can see like where you've gone and stuff. And and then you just run, and it's an excuse to exercise because you have zombie noises in your head, and you can hear when they're coming, and you'll get notices from people that are trying to help you survive. And then hopefully you get to this light tower, or the tower. I don't remember if it's a light tower or not. And then you'll be safe, or you'll have this final confrontation. I don't know how the story goes yet because I'm not far enough along, but if you need an excuse to exercise and you want to turn your running into a game, this is a great way to do it. It tells you how fast you're going, how long you've gone, and you pick up little achievements along the way. And if you are afraid of zombies, you'll be highly motivated.
So the next one they'll release, though, will be You Will Be a Zombie, right? And that one will be...
Called Zombies Run
Zombies!
with no comma.
Yeah, and you'll just pick up brains along the way.
Cool. So it's like Runkeeper meets some sort of
Any iOS
RPG,
game.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and that sounds super fun. Okay, last but not least, Sparrow for the iPhone. Now, Sparrow is an email client, formerly just for the OS X desktop. It is very similar, if you use OS X, to the Twitter client.
But
the
it
official
doesn't,
Twitter
it doesn't
client.
have to be, because it can totally expand into this
It
big
is
thing too,
sensible.
which...
But it's
Wonderful.
basically, it's sort of that design inspiration. It's got the tabs along the side, and like it's a really great app. And most people I know who like using desktop email as opposed to say Gmail, Adam, Matt Buchanan, who formerly of Gizmodo, lots of people have switched to Sparrow from Mail because it's kind of great.
So much better.
And it works very well with Gmail, right?
Works great
Yeah.
with Gmail. That's the main sell of Sparrow for most of us is that it's desktop. It's local, stores it locally and whatever. You can do it offline easily, but mostly it works really well with Gmail stuff.
like
So like
labels,
stars and labels, even priority
archive.
inbox on the
Yeah.
desktop, archiving, delete. They're different things.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Apple didn't.
So Sparrow for iOS, it is awesome. There's one big bummer for it for some, which is that Sparrow for iOS does not do, at this moment at least, push notifications. So when a new email comes in, you'll have had to open the app and just like refresh your inbox to find it.
And
I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I've already turned off push notifications on my email for two reasons. One, battery, it sucks the crap out of your battery. And two, it's an unnecessary distraction. I don't need it. Email is something that I consider a like second level notification thing where it's like if someone needs me urgently, they will text me or IM me or whatever, something that isn't email. If it's an email, it's not urgent enough, so I don't care about push notifications. Anyway, the interface is awesome. It's got like great little swipes in both directions to switch accounts or like taken action on an email. It's done a lot of really small, smart things, like to mark a message as unread, you don't have to show details and then tap another thing. There's actually just a little circle that you tap and it makes it unread again. Archiving versus delete is one of the big things because you can do both.
Sparrow for iPhone is enough to maybe get me thinking about switching to iPhone.
Well,
because there was a point where every time I go use my iPhone. Yeah, but I'm just kind of fed up with Android. But every time I go back and use the Gmail app, I'm like, no, I couldn't do iPhone if it didn't have archive and labels and things like that. Can't do it.
People are calling Sparrow the Gmail app that Google
should have made.
Yeah, well, and tried to and couldn't.
Well, I don't know if they tried.
I don't think they tried at all.
Try that hard.
They technically tried,
but they did make one at least.
Yeah.
And it's crappy.
The bottom line is, if you use email on the iPhone, you got to check this out.
Yeah.
Unless you rely really heavily on notifications.
It's a $3 well spent, but also on the notification thing, it's not Sparrow's fault.
It's Apple's.
Apple didn't. For security purposes, basically they had to store your email account information with your email address and your password on their servers in order to do push.
Right.
Alternatively, they could. There was some other method that used that allowed a network app to run in the background, and they used that API, but Apple denied the app as long as that API was in use, so they had to remove it.
And they didn't want to store your credentials on their servers for fear that if they got hacked,
then
your email credentials would be out in the open, which I respect them for doing that. Thanks a lot, Sparrow.
So if you do want push notifications, if it does matter, they have a thing on their blog right now where you can enter your email address and say, yes, I want this, and then they'll notify you when they manage to get around it. And I think also signing up would be helpful because then they can show Apple, here's a crap load of people who want push notifications. Let us do this.
So also in the short term, though, you could still use it as your app and just use push notifications for the regular email app.
Exactly.
Just when you find out that a new email comes in,
or
open Sparrow
something
instead.
like Prowl, if you're already using Prowl for a Mac, which will push Growl notifications to your phone.
Assuming if you've got your desktop running all the time.
Yeah.
Which you probably do. That's it for this week. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.
If you'd like to ask us a question, send us an email at tips+asklhshow@lifehacker.com. Alternatively, leave us a message at 347-687-8109. Try to keep your questions to about 30 seconds so we can keep the show moving. And thanks for watching, listening, or however you're getting this podcast from the internet to your brain.
We are also now recording on the microphone. It's a phone, but micro.
It's really not accurate at all.
Yeah, not anymore.
In the 80s, maybe.
It's a phone, but micro.
Wasn't any more true when you said it the second time.
Yeah.